Hello and good morning, everybody. Welcome to App Security Why Advanced Threats Require Advanced Application Defense with exclusive networks and F5. Today we have Mr. Yazid Almaso as our speaker, the Regional Sales Manager Meta, FI NGINX and F5 networks, joined with Mr. Prashant Jani, the Enterprise Solution Architect at NGINX and F5 networks, which will be followed by Mr. Fortak, the Regional Sales Manager for Shape Security at F5. And finally, we will finish off with Mr. Dale Fairbrother, the Senior Product Management Engineer for F5 Silverline at F5. We have a few housekeeping rules today. The attendees are on mute throughout the webinar. The attendees are encouraged to raise questions for speakers, and you all can put up your questions in the chat option that's located on the GoToWebinar control panel that says chat. We will start in 5 minutes. We'll allow a few more people to join in. Okay, we will start off this session with Mr. Prashant and Yazid. We will share the screen with Mr. Prashant now.
Thank you. Good morning, Yazid.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today into this session. In the next 20 minutes, we want to share with you just our view on application modernization. My name is Yazid Mosu, and I'm the regional sales manager for NGINX, and joined with me with Prashant, solution engineer as well for NGINX in the region. If we can move to the next slide, Prashant, please. So, well, definitely we're in application capital era, and we see everything is today from business point of view is around application and around interacting with application. We start seeing even companies worth billions of dollars is just basically built on an application. And even for us today, as an end users, we take decision to work with company X, not Y, to join bank X, not Y, based on our digital experience with that company or with that bank. And different part of the world, we start seeing as well the concept of branchless banks, where the full bank is just an application at the end. This is a new trend, but it comes definitely with bigger challenges. And this challenge is for this applications provider is multiple. But I'm just going to take you through a couple of those challenges that we see today. Of course, most of the companies today, or most of the organizations, they run a very complex application portfolio. A huge percentage of the organization running over probably sometimes 50 applications at the same time, and that's between modern application, traditional monolithic application. Some of it's on-prem, some of it's on the cloud, with different strategies, and that's leave them with a very complex operation to run these applications. From security point of view as well, in the old days, we used to see that we're just building a fort around our data center, how we can protect our data inside. We put the firewalls, we put the IPSs, everything around that. But today, the security exposure is more into the end user, more into the application user out of that data center, and how they can use this user profile to get into this data, and that add a huge challenge as well today to the application provider. And the third part, because of the complexity of running this application, because of the multi-environment, organizations today are losing the visibility and end-to-end on their application and what's happening exactly. And most of the time, you'll find that there is a bad experience or like a degradation and on the performance of a certain application where they don't know exactly what is the root cause, and that caused them to lose sometimes their users or their clients because of this reasons. So today in NGINX, we decided to take that journey, and or F5 decided to add us to the family, of course, to take that journey with them into application modernization, because we believe application modernization is the first step to overcome all of these challenges. F5 have been in the market for 25 years now. We've been one of the leaders in the application delivery controllers. We know our applications very well. We helped a lot of organizations across the world today into delivering a very successful applications. And there is a part that F5 couldn't. I'm not going to say couldn't. That F5 didn't do in the past that they decided to onboard NGINX to cover that part. And today we're gonna just take you through the portfolio of NGINX, what do we do exactly, and how we can help in the application modernization. But as you can see today in the screen, NGINX is not new. We've been in the market for a long time. There's 450 million websites are running behind NGINX today. We've been in the market for over 17 years now. The original use case was very simple. It was the founder just came with a solution to address a certain challenge, which was called 10K challenge at that time. And it is exactly to find out or to build a web server that can handle 10,000 concurrent sessions at the same time. And that there was no solution at that time that can address this challenge. So he came out with a solution that is very small in footprint, very agile, and very high in performance. And this is what makes NGINX one of the most famous in the market today. And definitely after 17 years, we're not still the web server company. We're bigger than that. And the environments have changed. So this is why as well today, we want to give you the choice into where you want to run this solution, where you want to, which environment you want to run this solution on. So NGINX is very flexible into that, where we can run it on any bare metal, you can run it on virtual machine. And today, the most important part as well, since we're talking about application modernization, we can be run on a containerized environment because of the same reasons that I mentioned before, the small footprint and the high performance of the solution. As I said, we're not the web server company anymore, and there is a lot of use cases we can address. The important part about this modernization journey as well, to have a full end-to-end visibility, is just not to fall into multiple silos and 10, 15 vendors that's providing multiple solutions. And that's one part that we're addressing today. It is the same exact license, it's the same SKU that can deliver all the use cases that you see on your left-hand side, and that will help definitely from reducing the complexity of your operation, and it help as well from reducing the TCO of running an application at the end, and it will give you the end-to-end visibility on what's happening in your application. For the use cases part, Prashant is definitely gonna sound more smart than me, so I'm gonna hand it over to Prashant, and I hope this will be very informative for you today. And please feel free to drop any questions on the chat if you have any questions today. Over to you, Mr. Jan.
Thank you, Yazid. Good morning, everyone. I hope everybody is safe and sound. I'm going to talk about how NGINX can help in modernizing applications from different standpoints. Yes, of course, we all want to deliver great digital experience to our customers, but at the same time, we want to ensure that we do not compromise on security. And that's where, in fact, NGINX helps. So yes, there are a plethora of use cases, and I have no intention to go through all of them in this session, but I rather want to focus on the security part. So when we talk about the information security today, we are mainly talking about quite a few things, but the risk around the applications which we are publishing and the APIs which we are publishing to internal as well as external users. And when we do that, we want to ensure that the first thing that we have the visibility over them. Because as they say, if you don't see it, then you cannot, if you don't see it, you cannot stop it. So visibility is one of the most important things. And I'll talk about how we help in that. And the second part is, of course, you see the threat and then you block it. And that's where we have the tools which help you to ensure that irrespective of where your application resides, whether it's in your own data center or it's in some cloud, and same goes for the APIs, your internal APIs or your external APIs, we ensure that you have the minimum risk when it comes to your apps and APIs. Now, when we talk about NGINX, it's a simple software, still hardly 3 MBs in size. irrespective of the use case you see here, it's the same software. So it's pretty powerful, as you can see. But from the security standpoint, we used to have a lot of customers asking us before NGINX was part of F5 that we know F5 WAF is one of the best. We have been using it for years. It has been protecting our most critical applications. But now we are modernizing. Now we are moving our applications to microservices. We are moving our applications in the cloud. And we are looking for a WAF which can run as a container, for example, which can run for each and every microservice I have in my microservices environment. That could be on-premise or that could be in the cloud. I want to have security to ensure that when one microservice talks with other microservice, I have enough controls on that. Traditionally, we always ensure that, if not always, most of the time we ensure that when one application server is talking with another application server, we have at least certain controls through the firewalls and other security mechanisms and tools we have in the place. But when customers move to microservices, it becomes a bit more tricky, because here we are not talking about few application servers or bunch of application servers. We're talking about, in some cases, not hundreds, but thousands of microservices which talk with each other. This is where NGINX helps. So when we talk about the security, classically, as well as in modern times, there are two flows. So north-south, that means any user or any machine coming from outside and trying to connect with our applications. That could be running in the traditional way on a virtual machine or a bare metal, or that could be running on a microservice. And then the other flow is called east-west. So that's lateral movement within the data center. That data center could be our own or some cloud environment. This is where one microservice is talking to other microservice, and we need to ensure that this traffic is also controlled. So here we do provide what our customers were asking for before the NGINX acquisition. Once the acquisition was closed, the most important focus for us was to ensure that all the goodness we had in the form of security solutions with F5, we could also extend that to the NGINX Plus solution. The net outcome is that anywhere you are running NGINX software today, and NGINX can run in different flavors, as Aziz was highlighting. It could be a container, or it could be a bare metal, or it could be a virtual machine running in your own data center or in the cloud. You can enable the F5 backed WAF engine on that. So that's your web application firewall. And that can be done at the great granularity. That means you can have it for traditional applications running on virtual machines, or you can have it for each and every microservice. The east-west traffic, so that means one microservice is talking with other microservice. We do have controls in terms of service mesh solution, which ensures that you have full control and visibility. I should say visibility and control, to ensure that nothing is going under the radar. Now, yes, these are the security controls I'll talk more about. But when we talk about it, everything, whether it's your app and APIs, the most important thing is that we have one place to go to ensure that if somebody asks me that, okay, if I work for organization, let's say ABC, and somebody comes to me and asks, okay, Prashant, can you tell me how many applications you have across your application delivery framework, or how many APIs you have? If as a CISO, or as the security department, or as the application department, if I do not have answer to that, there is a problem, because what you don't see, you cannot stop, and what you don't know about, you cannot of course protect it. So this is where we have something called NGINX controller. You can think of NGINX controller as a centralized management visibility solution, which connects to all the NGINX Plus instances running in your traditional applications environment or modern applications environment. The use cases could vary. So somebody could be using us as a web server. Somebody could be using it as, for example, a WAF, a containerized WAF within the microservices environment, or somebody could be using NGINX Plus as a gateway into the microservices environment. That gateway technically is called the Ingress controller, and we are one of the most popular and default implementation in Kubernetes environment. But again, when we act as a gateway for microservice environment, we can ensure that only valid traffic is going into the cluster, everything else is getting dropped. Of course, many times, not many times, more often times, customers use us as API gateway to ensure that their APIs are delivered at scale and at good speed. When they do that, they want to ensure that their APIs are also secure. So what we are doing with the NGINX controller, that irrespective of the use case, whether it's a web server, whether it's an API gateway, whether it's a load balancer, whether it's a web proxy for which you're using NGINX Plus, you have one single pane of glass in the form of NGINX controller to ensure that if somebody asks you, going back to the question that, do you know how many apps and APIs you have, and do you see all of them in terms of amount of traffic and the patterns? The answer is NGINX controller. And of course, we have, let's say, cloud offerings, more advanced security offerings in the form of DOS, DDoS mitigation, which we can combine. The net result is that you have just a couple of software solutions which greatly simplify your architecture, enable you to see everything what's happening in your infrastructure, protect it, and at the same time cut cost to ensure that your ROI is best in your investments. Now, going more into the controller, the NGINX controller is our single pane of glass. This is completely agnostic to the environment. So that means this controller can run anywhere in your own premise or in the cloud. And of course, the NGINX Plus software, which we were talking about, can also run in any of the environments. Could be on-premise, could be multi-cloud. So this is truly multi-cloud hybrid solution, which ensures that irrespective of where you decide to publish your applications and APIs, you have one place to go and find answers to different questions. And when you answer that, you're also able to put right controls in right place to ensure that your residual risk is minimum when it comes to information security. From of course, the applications and API standpoint, there are many other things which we still need to cover, but from the apps and API standpoint, we help you greatly. Now, more and more organizations are moving towards DevOps, and that's one of the themes for today, that yes, security and modern applications. Now, modern applications is yes about delivering applications in new way using new kind of software, new kind of platforms, which could be around microservices and containers. But modernization is just not only that, it's also about automating and orchestrating the configuration. And when we talk about that, organizations need to ensure that whatever solution they buy, it can be easily integrated into DevOps practices. If it cannot be, then probably in 2 months or 3 months or 6 months timeline, you will start realizing that the new software which you bought probably to modernize things is actually slowing down your modernization journey. And this is something which we had in our mind when we first thought about this solution. The whole automation is built at the core of NGINX controller and NGINX Plus. So that means if you want to integrate into your DevOps tooling on day one, we provide easy means to do that for you. Now, from the use cases standpoint, yes, we were talking about two main things, visibility and the security. So we provide visibility for all the applications and APIs in one place, and usually that's delivered through different use cases. So for example, you might be using NGINX as a load balancer. You might be using it as an API management solution. You might be using it as a web proxy. And those are your applications and APIs, basically. What we do is we not only provide a way to configure all of these use cases from NGINX controller, but we also provide the visibility in NGINX controller. So once that part is done, you can apply the security controls on top of that. Most of the times, what's happening these days is that there are different teams who have responsibility for different set of applications, and within those teams, they might have different roles. So they might say, okay, I want to, for example, have somebody logging into the NGINX controller and only have a look at the analytics. If that's the case, they can easily do that by using the role-based access available on the NGINX controller. So we combine two main parts here, multi-tenancy. So you can create different tenants on the NGINX controller. They all can have the dedicated NGINX Plus instances to deliver different use cases. And at the same time, for all these tenants, we provide the role-based access. Now, of course, if you've already invested in one of the solutions that you see here, we want to ensure that you have a good ROI on your existing investment as well. And that's why we have integrations with most of these providers to ensure that we are able to work with them to get to ensure that you get best of all of your investments. Now, I want to focus on APIs today. We applications, probably we all have worked with them over a period of time. We all are more aware about it, but sometimes APIs are getting left behind. And this is where we are helping with the NGINX controller based solution. So yes, it can act as an ADC, it can act as your web proxy, but at the same time, it can also act as your API management solution. So what that means is, irrespective of all the API, irrespective of where you're publishing your APIs, irrespective of the kind of API, internal API, external API, you can manage all of your APIs in one place. And when you do that, you tick one box in terms of security. So that's the visibility. You are able to see all of your APIs, the features and functionalities in terms of versioning, developer portal, all is part of it. From the security standpoint, you have answered that where my APIs are, how they are doing, and you have different metrics around it. From the technical standpoint, there are mainly two components to the whole solution. We have the controller, which is management control plane. This is where we define policies. This is where we define authentication, authorization policies, rate limiting policies, and many other security policies with respect to APIs. Those policies get applied to API gateway. This is the data plane. This is where actually the API consumer connects. They do not go to the controller. Controller is out of band, to say that. So it doesn't participate in traffic flow. It's just for the configuration and analytics. And API gateway is something which is handling it. Developer portal and all this are, of course, the collaterals of the whole solution. Now, when we talk about the security, we provide the security, the WAF, Web Application Firewall, for your APIs and applications, which is based on popular F5 advanced WAF, which has been in the industry for quite a few years. And we have been constantly rated as one of the most effective WAF. There have been a lot of improvement in the WAF in terms of what has been happening in the IT world. So the modern threats are demanding that we slowly and steadily move away from static signature-based mechanisms, controls, to something which is more based on artificial intelligence and machine learning mechanisms. This is something we already have in the F5 WAF, and we have also, or we are making it available in the NGINX Plus WAF, which is again based on the F5 advanced WAF. This WAF is called NGINX Protect. Of course, it's backed by the F5 advanced WAF, and it offers mainly three values, customer value. So the first of all, that it's lightweight WAF, which makes it quite suitable for modern applications. When we talk to DevOps, when we talk to people who are deploying things in microservices, they are asking for lightweight WAF, which can sit along with, for example, their services or pods in microservices environment. The second thing is that they're asking for easy CI/CD integrations. So that's your continuous integration, continuous delivery or deployment from your DevOps standpoint, to ensure that nobody uses, for example, GUI or CLI to configure WAF directly, but rather it's embedded into the pipeline, CI/CD pipeline, to ensure that whenever they need a WAF policy for a specific application or API, it's done through the mechanisms they usually use for application provisioning. And the other thing is that the way we have built this WAF from the DevOps standpoint is that it gives you something called security as a code, which essentially helps you to shift security left. What that means is that you embed security at the early stage of your application and API provisioning, rather than an afterthought, which is like, let's say, okay, my application is ready, now give me a WAF policy. Usually that slows down the delivery, because you might have some false positives, some other surprises, which would need some time to fix. And of course, all of these things are backed by F5 support. The key thing with this WAF is that, yes, it can run, for example, on your API gateway. It can run on load balancer, everything managed by NGINX controller in one place. But if you want to run this WAF in the containerized form within the microservice environment, let's say as per service proxy or per pod proxy, or at the ingress controller level, you can easily do that with the NGINX App Protect WAF. On that note, that's what I wanted to cover from the slides standpoint, but I can give you a very quick sneak preview of how the NGINX controller looks like. So I hope you can still see my screen. If one of the panelists can confirm. Okay, I take that as yes.
Yeah, we can see there. We can see the portal. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so this is the NGINX controller. This is what I was talking about. So this is one place, single pane of glass, where you can see all the apps and APIs in one place. What I'm going to show you that how the analytics look like given the limited time we have right now. So yes, it has multi-tenancy capabilities, role-based access. The way you do that is by defining different environments and different roles. I'll not go into that right now, but let me jump into the services part, and I'll show you that how the analytics look like when I publish an application or API through this solution. So let me go to one of the API here. So usually when we talk about the applications, you want to ensure that it's performing well. And the way you can check that is by having the visibility in terms of how much traffic you are having. Is this application having any errors? Usually, if you have 400 or 500 errors, that means your application has an issue. And then if the total number of requests is suddenly going up for no known reasons, that's probably a sign of a DDoS attack. So the simple graphs help with a lot of stuff in terms of security as well as the operational stuff. So here, for example, we can easily see that how much traffic we are processing. If there are any errors with the application, we can see that, and you can set different time filters here and compare today's analytics against, for example, same 3 hours from the previous day or from whatever makes sense for this scenario. Now, many times what happens is that people come and tell us that, you know, the application is a bit slow, and that could be because of your API gateway or a proxy or a load balancer. You can go to latency metrics, and here we will tell you about end-to-end latency. So we have the client latency, we have the upstream latency. So this is basically client latency is a latency between your users, that could be a man or machine, connecting to your apps and APIs, and basically a proxy in front of that. So this is between your users and NGINX Plus instance. And then you have the upstream latency. That's latency between NGINX and the backend API or the application server. So if this is going up and it's let's say the developers who are complaining about it, then probably we need to show them this graph and understand that why suddenly the latency has started going up from the backend itself. Maybe there is a new patch which they have deployed, and that's probably causing this. Or maybe somebody has decided to put some additional security controls between these devices, solutions, and that could be slowing it down. If this is fine, and if it's the latency on the client side which is going up only, then maybe something is wrong between the users and the NGINX Plus solution or some new configuration. Now, oftentimes what happens is that we also have scenarios where customers ask us that, your customers, that okay, everything is fine about your apps and APIs, but there is a specific part of the application which is not working fine. So that could be, let me take an example of online banking. Everything is fine, but when I try to, let's say, transfer fund, it doesn't work the way it should, or maybe it's very slow. Now that's something which is finding a needle in the haystack from the operational standpoint. But here, to an extent, if not entirely, we can help you find the problem. So we have advanced analytics here, where you can filter the information which you see over here in terms of the latencies, the workload, the response duration, a lot of other stuff by filtering based on, let's say, different criteria which we have. So I'll say, let's say, based on HTTP URI, I want to see which application URLs or API endpoints are not working the way it should. So here I have different URLs which you can see, and you can just go through this graph and try to see if there is any outlier case in terms of the deviation. So here we can see that one of the URL is having some spikes, and if this is something which correlates to what complaints we are getting, then probably you have found the problem area and you can fix it. So this is just one example, and there are a lot of other filters you can set. From security standpoint, we want to see that which URLs are getting targeted the most, or which API endpoints are getting targeted. If that happens, you can go to, for example, the security analytics. Here we can see that how much traffic we are letting go and how much traffic we are flagging and blocking. This also gives you that which are the top targeted URLs or the API endpoints, and it also gives you information about the WAF, the top threats from the WAF standpoint for your APIs and your applications. So I think probably this is where I probably should be stopping in the interest of time and letting the next speaker come in. So this is where I will stop. I hope this was useful. If you have any questions around what we have seen today, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to get back to you. Thank you so much for time.
Thank you, Prashant, and over to Ford.
Okay. I hope you can see my screen, guys. Is it clear?
Yes, all clear.
Okay, thank you so much again. Today we are going to go through some threat attack regarding automation. We're going to speak about Shape Security, one of the acquisition of F5. It's been more than 1 year now. We're going to start mainly with the introduction of automation attack, which all of us has been incurred at a certain point of time. We'll go through the Shape Security platform, then we'll go through Q&A maybe after or at the end of the session. As all of you may know, one of the major attack, well-known automation attack is credential stuffing. And mostly every single customer who has a website or the service that rely on to the end user has at any point of time incurred a credential stuffing attack. What do we mean by credential stuffing? Is simply when your end user or your consumer use or try to mitigate or copy their username and password on many websites. So when a credential or once a hacker spilled one of this username and password, it can be used on the other website. Another type of automation that, and mainly for airline, we can see it for the airline, for hotel, and for the retail business, is the scraping. Especially after COVID-19, where most of us are relying on e-commerce. So competitors try to mitigate the pricing of the competition, copy the price, search for code, and then you can find our price at the other side by writing a script and like fool the hacker or fool and get analysis about all these prices. The third automation attack is carding, and this is where we can see it a lot within the banking sector. And this is where the hacker try to, after stealing hundreds or thousands of credit card numbers, they will use automation and they will use bot to test this credit card number against or versus the website or banking sector. Cracking is also another type of automation attack, especially in the retail and the hotel when you provide an e-voucher. And then what they do, we all of us know that a certain e-voucher has a particular type of or a number. So what they do, they will take this number and then will again test it against many retailers using a script or using a bot automation. And here the success ratio will be, for example, 1 or 2%. So imagine on an average of million of vouchers being stolen, if the success ratio is around 1 or 2%. So imagine how many vouchers can succeed to attempt. The most important one is the aggregator, which is one type of automated attack. And this is something very, very important. It's going to be one of the big subjects, especially in our region, with the open banking coming in place. especially in Saudi Arabia and in UAE. What I mean by aggregator is the third-party tools that the consumer can use to consolidate all the type of accounts he had used. You as a consumer, you might have an account in bank A, bank B, bank C. Instead of going and checking every single one aside, you use an aggregator to consolidate all this bank. The problem is once an attack had happened in one of these aggregators, the bank will not know. So ultimately, a hacker who managed to have any attack on one of these aggregators, like Plaid, Yodlee, Entwit, he can ultimately manage to have an attack also on the bank without him knowing. Having said this, let's talk about Shape Security Platform. What we can do regarding Shape Security Platform, what exactly we're trying to solve. First of all, we start by understanding the typical journey of the customer. So from the time, be it an airline, banking, retail, telco, any consumer that has a online business where his customers are relying on, we start by understanding the complete journey from the time he log in through the search or whatever kind of activity he is doing. Here I have put an example of one of the airline we're protecting. For example, we're searching for a flight, he select the flight, then paying by card, and then doing the checkup. So we at Shape Security, we follow the complete journey, not only the login, just from the login to the checkout. So how we do this? The first question we ask ourselves is, are you a human or are you a bot? The main important point we need to solve here is to segregate between the bot and the human that are targeting your services. The major point or the starting point, because you might have 80 or 90% of the traffic hitting your organization are not a human. So you need to segregate between two by asking yourself, is it a human who is using my service or is it a bot? And this is the first step. I mitigate or I answer the question of, am I a human or am I a bot? Once it is done, we move to the next step, then asking, am I a good or bad? Because now I'm end up, all the traffic that I have are non-bot, are only human. And here we use our second solution of Shape Enterprise Defense called SAFE, where we do mitigate the manual fraud. Your role here as an organization to know whether these people or that you know they are human are real fraudster or real legitimate people. And this is where we ask, we reduce the fraud and we ask or we mitigate the question of, are you a bot, are you a good or you are a bad human? And at the end, the most important thing, once we know that all these humans that are entering or logging using our service are good human only, we need to make sure and retain all these customers or all these consumers. We need to create a friction-free environment to this consumer to come again and again, especially if I am an airline, if I am a retailer, if I am a financial institution. I want this loyal customer who I am 100% sure they are not bot and they are good human to keep using my service on and on. And in this regards, we use the third product from Shape Security, which called Shape Recognize, which tell a specific organization to a specific consumer that are you who say you are, and make sure to use my service again and again. So this is in general the platform of Shape Security. As I mentioned again, so we've got the Shape Enterprise Defense by reducing the automated attack. We move at the next step to the Shape Artificial Fraud Engine, where we mitigate the bad human from good human. And as the third step, we use our Shape Recognize solution to increase the customer account recovery and to use to augment the usage of this loyal customer to our services. How is it done? So how we do this? What is the methodology that we use it in a different to anyone else in the market? We don't use the traditional signal. We don't use the traditional rule. We use the three main interaction behavior and machine learning and artificial intelligence. We rely on three main aspects, which are the environmental, the behavior, and the network traffic. All the three, not each one alone, they are correlated in a matrix where all three together can define whether a particular traffic is a bot or not, is a good human or not, and it's a return or having a very return loyal customer or not. When we say environmental signal, we do study what is the environment, what is the timestamp, is it coming from Chrome, it's not coming from Chrome, what is the environment of the customer, whether it's a web or a mobile, what kind of signal is using. We check each and every browser, we check each and every emoji, we render the emoji whether it's coming from an Apple or Google or Microsoft. We also, when we speak about the behavior signal, we know that bot, usually the way the mouse is moving, the way the click is being done, the way moving the key up and key down, how we use it as a human is totally different on the way the bot is using it. This is why we do collect all this signal and we make a database and we check it versus every single login happening to the system. This is regarding the behavioral signal. Network signal, we also check which IP it's coming from. Usually fraudsters tend to use multi-IP or multi-ASN. We check every IP, we track the non-bad ASN, also for the hosting services. This is one of the example how network signal work from SHIP. Now, having spoke about the environmental, network, and behavior signal, let me take you through about the manual fraud, which is the most important service from us or from Shape Security, how safe risk engine work. As simple as that, once we identify that a particular traffic trying to log into our service is not a bot, is only human, then we take a decision to know whether it's a bad or good. What we do, first, we pass it, if it's a good, through our artificial intelligence and machine learning. Two, either we challenge it, let's say by sending a multi-factor authentication, by connecting to the fraud team, as you can see here, or we review it, we'll check it again, and we send him an email to challenge him again and again. Or the fourth step, where if we are 100% sure that this is a fraud attacker and it's not a good human, then definitely we'll drop the session. And all of this is done through our managed service mechanism by identifying definitely the fraud team in your organization. This is how the safe outcome dashboard look like. Mainly the fraud team can serve through it. They can check what type of current fraud they're having, what is how much they are saving. They can look into the blocked transaction, how many transactions is being blocked, what is the suspicious transaction that it didn't block, but we see that are suspicious and we need to take either challenge or review them. Then it will look into the performance. It will give you a real dashboard of or a real ROI report, how much money you have saved, how many fraud file or how many fraud attack been trying or being mitigated. Recognize, which the third step through our process of Shape Security. By what we're trying to do here, this is an example of one of our big customer in retailer. Once you are sure again that there's no bot, once you are sure that it's only human, you need to increase the people reaching out to your service or to your website or to your online e-commerce or airline or banking. How you do so? You need to make sure that let's take an example of one of our customers. You've got 130K day per attempt. Let's say a particular customer, 130K user are trying to attempt your service per day. So out of them, 15% or first 80%, they log in very happily, correct password, by the first attempt and everything is working perfect. They serve whatever they need to serve. They used your service. Then let's take the 15% out of them. They managed to halfway failed, but again, from the second or third attempt, they managed to log in successfully. However, the point is, let's say 5%, which is around 7K, they failed to log into your service. What does it mean in the language of the business here? Which means 7K out of 130K, they didn't use your service, and ultimately they went back and they used your competitor. So what we are trying to say here, we need to convert the aim of Shape Security. We need to convert as much as we can from this 7K to return it back and to take it up to the first 80% and to increase the conversion rate of the good loyal customer who return it back and back to your Azure service. So imagine the amount of money, imagine the value you're doing it, imagine the increase of ROI you are achieving after doing this. Be it an airline, for example, let's say you've got your portal, people cannot enter, they might try, or they fail to attempt, they fail to serve your server, they might go and use your competitor. So this is exactly what we're doing with Recognize, how we help the marketing team, the chief revenue officer, the business owner achieve or increase the return on investment on the revenue using a particular online services, be it a web or be it a mobile. This is the latest one. This is what we can see here is an increase of 1 or 2% in the revenue. And this is something very, very big. This is a dashboard that you can see after putting Shape Recognize in mitigation mode. You can see here, so visitor with Recognize, how they are logging into silent mode without any friction, without any failure, versus the visitor who are not using the Shape Recognize. That's from my side. The last one I want to talk to you about is all Shape Security products. The main differentiator is it's all used or offered as managed security services. In the world of fraud mitigation, be it a bot, be it a human, you cannot just apply or install a solution, configure it, and run away, because the fraudsters are always retooling and coming back again and again. This is why we deliver our solution as service or outcome as a service. We hold ourselves responsible for the outcome. We have our team of managed service team and SOC operation 24/7. We have a technical account manager who will be responsible for your organization and in touch with your fraud team. You will be notified and shared with threat briefing report on a recurring basis. And in this way, you are offloading your operation team and your fraud team from the day-to-day activity. That's from my side as Shape Security. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ford, for that very insightful session on Shape. We will move on to Dale Fairbrother for the final bit on Silverline.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see an event running ahead of schedule, and we're on sort of early and going to give you some time back at the end of the day, or can have an extended Q&A session. Now, I apologize, I can't get my camera on at the moment. I seem to be having a technical issue with that this morning, but my name is Dale Fairbrother. I'm a senior product management engineer for the F5 Silverline team. Now, I want to continue to build on the messaging my colleagues have already covered this morning. And now that NGINX and Shape are both part of the wider F5 portfolio, there's that increased value that our solutions can offer to our customers. You know, along with all these sort of different deployment models and consumption models that are now available, I'm going to focus specifically on one of those deployment models, which is called F5 Silverline. You know, I'll start by explaining to you what exactly F5 Silverline is, where it fits into our wider portfolio, and how it's delivered as that cloud-based managed security as a service platform to simplify the way we get these powerful solutions to you, the customer, to deliver that value. We mentioned before, and we've talked already about this adapted application methodology of F5. Our strategy is to partner with you in order to secure and deliver those kind of extraordinary digital experiences that we talked about from the NGINX portfolio. We've reviewed some of the challenges and the rising challenges around automation and the threats against your sort of digital presence. And in order to help you address this, we've kind of broken down our security solutions into 4 key components to help deliver optimized performance for your applications. We focus on performance, security, automation, and insights. You've already seen so far today the wide variety of solutions that we use to deliver these to you. Think about the insights that Yazid mentioned around that 449 million sites running the NGINX platform. And then the power of the shape technologies to secure organizations against online fraud. Leveraging all of these industry-leading technologies and bringing them together as a single managed service platform is the goal of the Silverline service. It's offered as a security as a service platform to provide you protection against advanced threats to any of your applications or any underlying infrastructure, regardless of their locations across the globe. Silverline is provisioned through a globally available cloud portal and combines the ease of use with rich contextual insights. Its fully automated platform offers consistent policies and performance to maximize your security risk posture. It's fully operated and managed by the F5 native Cybersecurity Operations Center to reduce that administrative overhead on your resources. And as managed security services are rapidly becoming a must-have rather than just a nice-to-have, there's several key drivers affecting this shift in enterprise organizations. My colleagues from NGINX discussed the importance of that digital presence. But you also have the challenge of migrating your applications and services to the cloud. And we all know there's a growing shortage of cybersecurity skills in the market as well. So how do you tackle these problems with these kind of key effects impacting your business? In our recent research through our State of Applications report, we've discovered that an average organization consumes over 980 applications to run their business. The problem is that most companies, though, have only a vague picture of what their application landscape looks like. Who owns each application? Where is it running? Is it vulnerable to attack? If so, what types of attack? And quite often, in the interest of speed, your developers are typically chosen the tools to help them get their applications to market fastest. They're not always considering the long-term security impacts of their solutions. Many organizations need to figure out how to manage the security policies, the compliance, the performance, and the analytics of that rapidly growing application portfolio across multiple environments and try to rein in that sort of generation of technical debt that's threatening future growth. At F5, we know your application capital is the primary focus for controlling, enhancing, and driving your business efficiencies. Consumers are always demanding more from their digital interactions with your systems and services, which has been further accelerated this year by the global pandemic. The availability, performance, and security of your application capital is now more important than ever before. Now, out of those hundreds of applications an organization is protecting, many of them do very obscure jobs, and you've maybe lost sight of what their ultimate purpose is, but this makes them the ideal target for hackers and for abuse. The Target breach, for example, resulted in the loss of 3.5 million customer records and a lawsuit and a massive loss of market cap. The hackers got in through the air conditioning system, which was connected to the network so engineers could monitor its performance. Also, in a recent casino breach, they resulted in the loss of the high roller database as hackers were able to get in through the digital thermostat in the lobbyist's aquarium. It was also made available online and accessible remotely for monitoring purposes. The point is to both of these stories is that focusing only on your mission critical applications puts your business at risk. Every application matters, and every application needs protection. The other driver I just mentioned that's leading to this higher adoption of managed services is the lack of the right skills and resources in the market. From our State of Application report, we've discovered that 70% of organizations admit to having a shortage in their cybersecurity skills. The majority of companies are struggling to find suitable application security experts, as well as a team of people that are knowledgeable in the cloud and the security requirements of cloud deployed applications. This lack of resource, the increasing number of threats, and the growing importance to your application capital means that the security solutions need to adapt to the needs of your business without adding any additional friction or that administrative overhead. So this is where Silverline can come in and help. By providing security within the, within that environment to sort of help increase your sort of capabilities of your in-house IT resources, while also protecting you from a wide range of attack vectors, leaning on our wider portfolio of technologies and those great new capabilities we've been able to onboard through services like Shape. Now, the first thing I'm going to talk about is a dramatic rise we've seen in the last couple of years for DDoS attacks and the variety of industries they're impacting. Some attackers are reinvigorating old attack methods, such as DDoS ransom notes, but others are also finding new industries to target, one of which in question has been the education sector. If you do a quick Google search for DDoS attacks against the education sector, a whole range of articles and reports will highlight this growing risk. These are just an example of what I was able to discover yesterday on google.co.uk, but I'm sure if you search for similar stories in your local region, you'll find that industry, education are increasing their or an increasing target for organizations. As people have moved to sort of remote learning and remote working, there's more input and more importance on particular types of services which can be taken down by DDoS attacks and cause wide-scale outages and performance issues. Now, there's several reasons why we're seeing this growth in DDoS attacks. It's not only down to the cost effectiveness and ease of launching a DDoS attack, but it's also down to the fact that there are so many more vulnerable points to target. As you as an organization extend your estate out to public cloud, you potentially open up API connections, like was just mentioned around the open banking APIs, to enhance your kind of business operations. That attacker has far more choice on what to target. Terms like Zoom bombing and DDoS ransomware may be new to many of you, but I'm sure you can all appreciate that there's been an increased importance to your remote gateway, VPN and authentication services, as well as things like video classrooms and video conferencing within the last few years. Throughout these challenging times, Silverline has continued to provide an effective DDoS mitigation service for hundreds of customers across the globe and across a broad range of industries and verticals. DDoS attacks don't just target service providers and large financial institutions, but have wider implications across technologies, services, the travel and retail industries, and as we've just mentioned, the education sector. They are so cheap to launch that everybody is now a target, and this presents a greater risk to productivity and your brand reputation. From data gathered specifically through the Silverline service, we can see that although the overall attack sizes for denial of service attacks are decreasing, the complexity and sophistication are growing every year. Attackers are leveraging more and more protocols and techniques in multi-vector amplification attacks that target both the network infrastructure at layers 3 and 4, all the way through to application services at layer 7. And that's where F5 comes in to help restrict and protect you from those DDoS attacks. It provides a comprehensive high-performance protection from distributed denial of service attacks with real-time cloud scrubbing services. It's fully managed and operated by the F5 Silverline SOC, so you don't have to worry about the detecting or mitigation of attacks yourself, but it does provide you that in-depth insight into the attack trends and patterns. As the SOC have visibility of all the attack traffic across our entire customer base, you can also benefit from that collective defense methodology, which helps reduce the risk of a zero-day style DDoS attack. The service extends our DDoS protection to include layer 7 defense for your applications to ensure that no services are impacted by business logic style attacks. We also offer a unique approach for our hybrid DDoS protection by integrating any on-prem F5 technologies that you may have deployed with our hybrid signaling for automated failover during an attack or times of high volume of traffic. The portal provides visibility and insight before, during, and after an attack to help increase your overall situational awareness. All traffic is ingressed at the closest point to the user and is cleaned based on your requirements, with only the good traffic being passed through to your applications, regardless of the infrastructure type or location where they reside. Whether that be your on-prem data centers, in colo or hosted facilities, or out in the public cloud. Many of our customers are already benefiting from a variety of cost savings in both the time and resources to manage a DDoS protection solution, and also that reduction in the size and scale of their application infrastructure as they only have to deal with the legitimate good traffic. As I said, the goal of Silverline, of F5 Silverline DDoS protection, is to provide that comprehensive high-performance protection. And to achieve this, there's a few different use cases that our existing customers are already benefiting from. The service will help you defend from both volumetric and sophisticated layer 7 DDoS attacks, which includes protection for those high-value targets such as your DNS infrastructure, or in these days and these current climate, your remote access and VPN solutions. Our industry-unique hybrid DDoS architecture will ensure your applications and infrastructure stay online and available during an attack, which will help protect your brand reputation. The next topic I want to discuss follows on directly from my colleague from Shape, whose conversation talked about automated threats and how they can be detected and mitigated through the F5 Shape solution. Automated attacks continue to have a devastating effect on your organization's digital presence. Bots aren't just used for launching DDoS attacks, but have sophisticated abilities to bypass those traditional defenses for the purposes of fraud, as we've just shown. If you want further information on the different types of automated threats, I recommend reviewing the OWASP Automated Threat Handbook for guidance on the different types of attacks and how you can mitigate against them. The Shape service already includes a broad range of industries and customers that are constantly under attack from different automated services. As Fawad mentioned, credential stuffing is the largest type of attack that all industries are being affected by. It impacts retail, banking, as well as the airlines and travel industry. Typically, any organization will have some kind of high-value resource or digital asset that the attacker or bad actor is ultimately after. And as we discussed earlier, online fraud typically occurs when those criminals act like legitimate users. They disguise their malicious intent. Their traffic gets mixed in with your legitimate users, making it very difficult to tell them apart. This can result in large financial losses to enterprise organizations. The attacker or fraudster typically try to interact with your website or application the same way a new or existing user would, but they're doing it with some underlying intent and purpose. In IT terms, it's sometimes hard to tell the difference between fraud and actual application hacking. With hacking, an attacker or bad actor is typically trying to exploit a weakness or vulnerability in the application infrastructure or the business logic. They have a goal to extract data or goods or information by misusing an application in a way it was never intended to be used. Using common attacks like the OWASP Top 10 to run scripts, break authentication, and extract data via a SQL injection, for example. With fraud, however, the attackers aren't typically trying to break an application. They're actually trying to use it as intended but with some underlying goal or objective. They may use the bots to try and complete fraud, or create new user accounts, or to try and test those known compromised credentials and validate stolen credit card data, as we've just discussed in the previous session. The attack types for automated fraud and application hacking can be very broad. So you need a solution that can combat all of these threats holistically. As we've said, credential stuffing is the #1 attack vector in the world. However, it isn't the only target or methodology for those fraudsters. They're often interested in a wider variety of digital assets or goods or your services, and of course your data. Anything that they can extract from your service to resell or use maliciously to gain additional value. Now, there are typically two approaches those attackers will take. They're either trying to extract one of these digital assets from your app, or they're trying to use your app to validate one of these other assets that they've stolen elsewhere, such as testing credit cards or gift cards or the credentials they have. So I'm going to touch on both of those points and how you can get value out of the Silverline Shape defense solution. With credential stuffing, we've discussed that it's about using a known list of compromised credentials to attempt to log into your web application or service. Or they'll generate those large numbers of credit card or gift card informations and pairs to try and understand what's usable and been validated against your service. On the flip side, we have web scraping. And this is typically where they use automation to extract some of your non-hidden application or website data for either comparison or misuse. Both leverage bots and automation to achieve their outcome, but one is focused on posting data to your application, and the other is focused on extracting data via the HTTP GET method. Typical targets for web scraping are things like ticketing sites, retail and e-commerce, and of course the travel and airline industries. We know data is king, and big data is even better. So the more data a hacker can get, the more they can do with it and the potential value. So when we start to look at the sort of size and scale, we can look at one of these examples from the Shape security toolset. If we look at web scraping within the travel industry, we can see that over a sort of 11-day period, there were 2.5 million queries for airline ticket prices against this particular customer. And we can see that 2 million of those were from automation, and only the 500,000 were actually from humans trying to book their tickets and do their travel and holidays. Now, not all automation is bad, so you will want to still have your applications and services show up on things like Google searches and people comparing airfares. So you do need to have that advanced sophistication, as Fawad mentioned, that can look at these aggregated type of services and understand not only is it a bot, but is it malicious or not? Should it be allowed through my system? If we build on top of this and start to analyze, well, why didn't my traditional defenses just pick up and start to block these attacks? If we look at this kind of particular use cases, we can see that during that time period, over 80,000 different IP addresses were used, all coming from a very small amount of devices through the automated bots, but they were varying their IP address for their source in a round-robin type of fashion. Typically, this is to try and avoid or get under the radar of a WAF solution that uses IP rate limits. Now, it doesn't replace the need for a WAF solution, but it is something where you need to combine the capability of the bot mitigation and automation detection along with your web application firewall services to make sure you can be fully protected from these services. As we mentioned earlier, the Shape-powered solutions typically leverage JavaScript injection into the customer's web browser to understand and gather telemetry from 3 unique areas: the environment, the behavior, and the network. Now, Shape has a couple of different consumption models, and one of those easiest ways to deploy it is combined through Silverline as what we call the Silverline Shape defense solution. It's able to inject the Shape JavaScript in any of your communication as it flows through Silverline, but still leverage the power of that Shape-powered AI and machine learning in the cloud. It gathers all the telemetry from these different factors around the environment the device is running on, the behavior of the user interacting with it, and the network elements, as we just went through in the previous session. It combines all those factors together and determines the likelihood or risk of automation. We're then able to take block, flag, or redirect actions against those malicious bots to ensure they can't scrape your data or inject credential stuffing attacks into your logon pages. The protection also extends to mobile apps and mobile services through Shape's mobile SDK, which is deployed on over 200 million devices worldwide. It gathers a different set of telemetry, such as the orientation of the device, the battery life, and other aspects within those mobile devices. The solution will provide you protection against those primary use cases that my colleague talked about earlier. How does it stop you from your accounts from being taken over or new fake accounts being created? How does it protect you from web scraping or block the ability for automation to validate credit cards or do some kind of loyalty program or inventory hoarding abuse? The goal is you want to remove all automation from your website to ensure that only legitimate traffic comes through. So combining it into the same service as the DDoS protection and the web service can ultimately deliver you additional value. The Silverline Shape Defense dashboard within our global portal is very simple and easy to use. It's still powered by the Shape AI fraud engine, but gathers all data about traffic and automation coming through your apps protected by Silverline to give you that deep insight into and visibility for any bot traffic. It's also super simple and easy to deploy as just a toggle switch within the Silverline service. Now, the final piece I'm going to sort of talk about in this session is how do we bring those different pieces of the puzzle together? How does Silverline help you protect from those advanced application threats with some advanced application defense services? You want some flexibility. So the F5 Silverline Managed Service offering comes in 3 primary solutions or can be combined together for holistic protection. The Silverline DDoS Protection Service provides that comprehensive high-performance protection from distributed denial of service attacks with our real-time cloud scrubbing services. The Silverline Shape Defense solution prevents that broad range of online automated fraud to keep your applications and digital assets safe and bot-free. The Silverline Web Application Firewall service will help defend your application capital from those emerging and sophisticated threats and ensure that business continuity for your critical apps and your digital presence. Each of these services are fully supported and managed by our in-house team of cybersecurity experts dedicated to delivering your desired security intent and keeping your apps available and improving that end user experience. Now, many customers already benefit from combining these services together for holistic application and infrastructure protection. But going back to my earlier slide, if you have almost 1,000 apps in use, all deployed across different infrastructures, all needing different levels of performance and protection, how do you choose the right security posture for each app? And that's the nice thing about Silverline. Although it's offered as 3 primary security services, as I've mentioned already, it actually comprises of multiple layers of security that build on top of each other to provide suitable level of protection for all your application and infrastructure needs. As well as our DDoS protection, you can implement global firewall rules, apply threat intelligence feeds, do blocking based on IP reputation or geolocation, as well as that layer 7 DDoS protection for your HTTP and HTTPS websites and services. Being built on the whole portfolio of F5 technologies, you can implement iRules for additional customization and specify which of your apps need web application firewall policies or the Shape bot mitigation service to prevent those automated attacks. If you consider all these different layers of security are included in Silverline, you can start to appreciate the potential cost savings in time and resources for you to manage and maintain each of these components. It's all taken care of for you by the F5 Silverline SOC managed service offering. It also helps you apply consistent security policies from a single portal across all of your applications, regardless of where they reside in the world. But not all apps need the same level of protection. Different types of apps have different needs, which is why we need an adaptable application security mindset. My mobile apps may need different protection to my web-based applications. My on-premises apps will need different security considerations to my public cloud deployed applications. Which of my apps need protection against automation versus just human fraud? As well as those most important business critical apps versus my long tail of applications and that sort of 1,000 apps that I don't have lost visibility to what they do. The great thing about the Silverline service is you can provision all traffic to run through those services, but layer on the different parts of the service you need for the different applications you have for your e-commerce, your retail, any banking, or that API security you may need to apply for specific types of communication. And the Silverline service is hosted in the cloud and is our own F5 cloud platform as a service offering. So it can send traffic or receive traffic from any of your customers anywhere in the world and distribute them out to your applications no matter where they reside. It doesn't matter whether your applications still exist on-prem in your legacy data centers, if they've been outsourced or colo-hosted in another location, or if you've moved to running them in the public cloud. We offer direct public cloud peering to AWS, to Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud Platform to really help you sort of optimize the performance and flexibility of your apps deployed across the multi-cloud world. F5 Silverline gives us some unique differentiators against our competition, and these typically result in 3 key elements: the people, the platform, and the portal. Now, the people actually covers multiple teams of experts, not just the SOC who operate the solution, but also our development and engineering teams that continue to innovate how the solution can be delivered and the value it provides to you, the customer. The platform is built on F5's industry-leading technologies and combines that cloud-like agility with high performance while maintaining the highest levels of compliancy and continuity. Our portal regularly receives praise from customers who benefit from its ease of use and that rich contextual insight it provides into their application traffic. Digging into each of these in a little bit more detail, the Silverline service comes complete with its own cybersecurity experts on hand 24/7 to augment your in-house resources. The SOC is native to F5 and dedicated specifically to operating the Silverline service. So there's no better team of experts anywhere in the world to have a direct line of communication to development, engineering, product and sales within F5, so their knowledge is second to none about the solution. There's no resource limitations or caps on the level of interaction that you, a customer, can have with a SOC. You can be as self-service as you wish or call upon the SOC for assistance and configuration for policy tuning any time of the day or night. The SOC can provide that extra pair of eyes on glass to help monitor and mitigate attacks in real time. The platform is built on our leading edge technologies to deliver the service with that greater agility, security, and availability at the global scale. Silverline is location agnostic, so it can provide security to any app anywhere in the world, whether on-prem, colo-hosted, or in the public cloud. If you look at our service map today, you'll see we have 13 points of presence with our primary scrubbing centers in very well connected hosting facilities and our regional POPs designed to service customers in region around the globe, running purely as software across the public cloud. The final differentiator is the portal itself. It provides rich visibility and contextual insight before, during, and after an attack, with in-depth violation data and analysis of attacks and the risk to your applications. Silverline also provides a log streaming capability at no extra cost to allow you to integrate our rich analytics into your in-house SIEM solutions for that complete situational awareness. The portal itself is very easy to use and fully customizable. The self-service elements allow you to choose the topology design for rooted or proxy mode, and select whether to leverage an always on or always available service level. The simple configuration elements in the portal allow you to benefit from a zero impact deployment, where you don't have to send intelligent hands to site to install the new hardware or configure any dependencies. All the information you need for guidance is provided through our comprehensive knowledge base. Silverline is application location and infrastructure agnostic. So customers benefit from that immediate effect, and in some cases, an almost instant return on investment. But as we talked about earlier, it's about the outcome it can deliver to you. So there's a broad range of protection services that can be leveraged through Silverline, whether you're defending yourself against automated attacks, whether you want to leverage our capabilities around that rich data analytics and insight into the protection services, or around the security of those web applications and services you need to deliver. The F5 Silverline service delivers that industry-leading protection for your multi-cloud hosted applications and services. It ensures that applications stay online and available and improve that end user experience, all while delivering you business continuity for those critical apps and your protection for your digital assets. The service will help you reduce operating costs in the time and management of those application security tools, as well as that operational overhead on your in-house IT resources, as you can be augmented by our Silverline SOC services. The comprehensive mitigation techniques will help drive efficiencies in your application security and deliver you that complete visibility and insight against those advanced application threats. For more information on Silverline or any of the services we've talked about today, please feel free to visit f5.com. We can arrange some follow-up sessions on either the NGINX portfolio, the Shape security model, or the Silverline services itself, and even start you with a proof of concept or a free 30-day trial. That's all I have to say today, and we'll open it up for the Q&A session. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Dale. We'll move on to the Q&A session. Okay. Yes. So we have a question for NGINX. If anyone from the panelists can take this for NGINX, it's how is NGINX different from Apache or Apache? Dale, Ford, or Prashant?
As my colleagues might not be available, or as we finished a bit early, it's Dale here. I'll just sort of take this question. So,
sure.
You know, Apache itself is still the sort of web server or system. NGINX has that sort of a broader portfolio of capabilities and can sit in front of an Apache server or any other web application and service underneath. So it's more flexible about how it can be kind of deployed. But typically, it's a different type of technology to the Apache server itself. But builds on top of that and adds those additional layers of security and functionality over the front, whether in the sort of freemium version all the way up to the kind of paid for and controlled version. And as you've seen, it's a very extensive portfolio across NGINX, which now combines and builds and integrates into the wider F5 technologies as well. So it really does build that service to provide performance, insight, and security for your applications, no matter where you deploy them.
Thank you, Dale. The next question is for Ford. It is, can Shape security handle manual fraud?
Yes, thank you so much for this question. Definitely, and part of the Shape security platform, we have a product or a service, we call it Shape Artificial Intelligence Fraud Engine, which is safe and which is directly to mitigate the manual fraud, which, as I said earlier, to tell you whether you are a good human or bad human. So definitely yes.
Thank you for that, Ford. Back to you, Dale. The question is, what should be the single most reason to choose F5 solution over competitors? What sets us apart, F5?
Well, that is a very sort of open question. Thanks. But there's a lot of value that can be offered in this sort of portfolio play. Regardless of the technology you need to deploy or wherever your application is, we can meet the needs of that application in its wherever it needs to reside. If you want to deploy your app and your website and databases in the public cloud or on-prem or in different sort of hosting facilities, you can leverage F5 technologies in front of that to deliver that performance, the insight, the security, and do it all in an automated kind of fashion. So whatever the need of that application is, we have that adaptable model for it. Now, how you choose to deploy that, whether you build components directly into the public cloud and through maybe our NGINX capabilities, or whether you sort of send traffic off to the cloud for analysis through the Shape security services, those options are available to you. You can then front all of that sort of traffic flow with something like the Silverline service to ensure that any sort of high volume DDoS attacks or threats are kind of mitigated before they even reach your infrastructure. So to me, it's all about that flexibility. You know you can provision the solution you need to secure that app, but you have the flexibility to move the way you deploy it and where you layer those security services on. And with our enterprise licensing agreements, you can do that without necessarily shifting budget or moving things around as you wish to deploy and change your landscape as a result. So that's why I think F5 is really kind of unique in its positioning and will be more and more relevant as applications kind of scale out and sprawl out around different environments.
Thank you, Dale. One last question, I think, again, sorry, this is for you, Dale. You spoke about the cost effectiveness of DDoS protection service. They're asking if any data on how much average percentage of cost is saved for customers by using these?
I don't have that answer to hand. I'm a bit of a techie guy, so I don't get too caught up in some of the commercial elements, but I know it's a question we get asked a lot. Now, when you're calculating the cost of running DDoS versus the cost of a breach or an outage, it's very difficult to do. We can show what it would cost you typically to run a DDoS solution for yourself and to run it on-prem and on your own hardware versus the cost saving of running it as a service that's always there and available to you. And that will typically show a cost saving at just that level. But then if you kind of combine to that how often you might get attacked, then each of those potential attacks add more to that kind of overall cost. So if you are the type of organization or you feel you're going to receive a lot of DDoS attacks over time, then the additional cost savings you get by running it as a service through Silverline will be very beneficial. It also means for a smaller organization, there's a lower cost of entry. Now, if you want to leverage all of our scrubbing centers all around the world, that's all included in the same sort of initial outlay of cost. So if you wanted that same protection deployed yourself across multiple locations, there would be a higher premium you would need to be charged. Or potentially through some of our competition, there's additional things you would be paying for to make that happen, which ultimately cost you more money. But we can certainly do a follow-up after this and look at your specific sort of size and use case and look at what the total cost of ownership would be and how effective it would be for you to deploy.
For sure. Thank you so much, Dale. Again, that brings us to the end of the session. Thank you, Dale, for all the insights and thank you for your specialization in Shape. I hope that this session has been good for all the attendees, and we will get in touch with you. Thank you, Dale. Thank you, Fahad.
Thank you, team.
Thanks for having us.
Bye-bye.